Hello all, John Adkison here once again. This time it's not a video about the circumcision harms docu-series that I've been putting together. This is more general. Today I have Harry from the Bloodstained Men, and I happen to be wearing a shirt from Bloodstained Men. And Harry, why don't you go ahead and give us the pitch that you would give to someone that has no idea what the Bloodstained Men are.
Right. So the Bloodstained Men is a protest organization, a human rights organization dedicated to educating people about the harm of infant circumcision. So we are a nonprofit public charity with our educational goal of, and we do a few things. We do on-street protests, usually regional tours a few times a year. And we put up billboards, and we have a Facebook and other social media presence. So those are our three main avenues of reaching people.
And you're different than pretty much any of the other intactivist organizations or the organizations that advocate for genital autonomy, and that you're the well, I guess there's one other organization, but you're the organization that travels all over the country with these outfits like what I'm showing on my shirt. And so it's a national, including sometimes Canada, right?
Right. Yeah, so we figured we had to have a national footprint, and it's just too easy to be ignored if you're just a local or regional presence.
Yeah, and one of the values that I see in doing so in this traveling around is there's a lot of people that want to protest this, but they don't want to do it by themselves. And when the Bloodstained Men travel around, it seems to attract a lot of other people in the local area that feel the same way that we do about the topic, and they join in. So it ends up being a pretty good sized gathering in each case.
Right. And people have said the most important thing Intactivists can do is create new Intactivists. And so part of the presence in it is if we come to a city and people join us for the first time, do their protest for the first time in their life, they do a protest. And for a lot of them are scared, don't know what, and then they feel really empowered once they do it. Mm-hmm. But the part of the thing is to get the message out, but the other is to create new Intactivists, get people feeling comfortable about speaking up. Yeah. And realize that they have the power to take action, and that it's not scary, and that they're with gentle, kind, pleasant people who want to encourage the gentle, kind treatment of babies. I mean, we're reaching out to lots of young moms, and they bring their kids sometimes, and it's a very usually a very happy thing. Our protests, unlike most protests, which really are scary, ours are family friendly and generally happy.
Yeah, well, some people say that the Bloodstained Men outfit is intimidating, but the outfit is intended to be more than just a sign. It's intended to grab a little more attention than just a regular sign might grab. So I'm a big time supporter of it. The first time I went out with Bloodstained Men was up in Vancouver, BC. And I spent 2 of the 3 days up there. First day in front of Pollock's office. If anyone doesn't know, Pollock is well-known genital mutilator in Canada, and his procedure has been copied or adopted by others in Canada. So that's why Pollock is a target. And then we also spent a day in front of I think the library there in Vancouver, right? So
right.
It was wonderful to meet Brother Kay and James Owen and so many other people there. So Anna, she goes by Anna Zoxy, Anastasia as well, and gosh, I could just name a whole bunch of names that I got to meet up there, and it was just wonderful. It was an honor to be able to join everyone there. So the reason why I wanted to get this together was I want to address a question or a tort that is often thrown at those that are out doing the outdoor activism. And the tort is, deal with this a different way. You know, you're out here with these bloodstained outfits, and you know it's disturbing, and and um, and kids are seeing it and everything like that. It's like, well, the reality is, in this movement, there have been lots of people that have taken lots of different approaches to try to address this issue. For instance, Patrina Fidel, she's responsible for the content on Catholics against circumcision. And she has written lots of letters to people in power at these hospitals that are supposedly Catholic backed or Catholic started or whatever, right? And you look at her letters, and you can find these letters on the website. The issue is treated like a hot potato, and it's usually, you know, people try to pass the bucket up the line. I've even tried contacting schools, Catholic, the archdiocese, the you know, and priests, hospitals, medical boards like the California Medical Board, and I know that people like Marilyn Miles and James Owen, they showed up at the California Medical Board in person decades ago. I have seen the video of it, and they were both a lot younger then. And then there is, you know, we've done petitions. We've tried to, multiple groups have tried to get the practice banned, or at the very least regulated in some way, fashion, or another. One of the most well-known, most recent cases was Denmark. They actually put it to for the representatives there to vote on whether to ban it or not. Now, if this is a socialist democratic country, right? So we know that in Denmark, well over 80% of the people there are for banning the practice of, you know, any kind of genital cutting that's non-therapeutic on children. So it would have been passed if it was up to just the people, but the representatives voted it down. And there was, I guess there's a medical board or whatever there, and the different medical groups chimed in and say, well, we think you should do this, and we think you should do that, and we think you should do that in order to regulate it a little bit more, because it's really not a regulated practice. It's, you know, they're not enforcing certain safety rules or anesthesia, and anesthesia should just be a given anymore. We know that it's painful. The babies do feel pain, and it's torture. It's been proven, but they weren't able. All these people, these medical groups, bowed out because they said, "Well, you aren't taking on what we're suggesting needs to be done to do this surgery." So I really have a problem calling it. Well, I definitely don't call it medicine, because it's not medicine. It's not, you're not fixing a problem. It's a ritual, but people call it a surgery because it's being done in a surgical setting by maybe some sort of a surgeon. But again, it's not regulated, so they don't have to follow all the other rules that they would typically follow with other surgeries.
An unnecessary amputation on a non-consenting person.
Yeah,
that's not medicine. That's violence. Exactly. It has to be seen as violence.
Yeah. Yep.
Medicalized violence.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
And the child is not a patient; he's a victim. It's violence. The surgeon is a perpetrator.
Yeah.
The child is a victim. It's a criminal assault.
Absolutely.
It has to be seen that way. There's no dancing around it.
No. Yeah, when you really look at the deep truth of it, and I'm coming from a place where I used to believe it was, you know, I was better off for having been cut myself. So I get how, you know, people go through cognitive dissonance. I was, you know, 35 before I started studying this topic, and my oldest son was coming into the world. But anyways, there's lots of other organizations doing lots of other things, trying to attack things. Like, for instance, there's an Intact PAC that's trying to work with politicians to, you know, get their support for genital autonomy. Intact America has done some great surveys around like identifying that 94% of hospitals sell this. These are hospitals in the United States, mind you, that they try to sell it by asking multiple times whether they want to do it, whether the parent wants to have it done or not. And then there's Your Whole Baby and some other organizations that are taking slightly different approaches. But Bloodstained Men and Cockfight are the two most known organizations as far as 501c3s are concerned that are out doing protests and traveling to different places to do one kind of protest or another. And you can see behind me a whole shelf and a half of books on the topic. Books have been getting created for decades now. There's multiple documentaries, and honestly, when I saw the American Circumcision documentary, I thought that was it. I thought that once that got wide distribution, it would just blow the top off of this, and that it would wake people up, on a large scale. When it had Netflix, that was like, this gotta be it, And it was, at first, it was super popular, but that's over 3 years ago now, and it hasn't happened. And still, and some of the work I've been doing myself, trying to get people to address this issue, talk about this issue, see about making, even a little bit of changes in the system, hasn't been fruitful, honestly, and it's very frustrating. So I even just little things like talk about it and say in churches, it's all over the freaking New Testament. Why aren't they talking about it? And Catholic schools. I picked up a group of students from a Catholic school, and I asked them, well, what is the Catholic stand on it? 3 of the 4 of them didn't know, and the 4th one guessed. It guessed wrong. So our only option, and I've been trying to advertise. I got a little bit of donations, and I've been promoting videos on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook. I even looked into Twitter, but that's kind of hard. There were a lot of hoops to jump through.
It's hard to. They don't want to sell advertising. They make it difficult for you to buy advertisements.
Yeah. Well, I buy them like on TikTok, and when I first recognized, I did 4 videos, I promoted 4 videos. 2 of them were about MGM, male, and 1 was about intersex, and 1 was about female. You can guess which ones got pulled down after a short while. The 2 on male.
And did they give you a reason why they?
They gave various reasons, but they were vague, that they were just pointing to one policy or another, or whatever. Right. Or they might just say, well, it's not good for the targeted audience or something like that. It's like, that's okay.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. What's the target audience? I didn't exactly get to choose. So yeah, and Facebook ads, they have some hoops that you have to jump through, and you have to be very careful about things. I mean, as it is, a lot of our posts and stuff get kicked out, or we get blocked or banned or whatever on things like Facebook, just doing regular posts. But to try to do an advertisement, that's an even bigger thing. And Bloodstained Men, you guys yourselves have, since the pandemic started, you started doing billboards.
Right.
Now it hasn't been a walk in the park, now has it?
Well, there's some companies that are very easy to deal with. Others are not so easy to deal with. So, we just keep at it until we find somebody that will rent a billboard to us.
Yeah.
And we've had, pretty good, like, it's just expensive. They cost, thousands of dollars to put one up for a few weeks. So
yeah, just a few weeks or a month, right?
Yeah. The only real negative about billboards is that it burns through a lot of cash.
Yeah.
And I don't know any way around that. I mean, if you put a billboard the middle of a city is just way too expensive. I mean, they're on the edges of cities where we put up the billboards. Mm-hmm. Usually on a busy highway, but it's really expensive. So one thing that an advantage is, if you go to a high cutting area with a low income, billboard rates are lower because the other advertisers, they're not going to be selling Mercedes in a low income market. So our goal is not to sell anything. So reaching the audience in a low income, high cutting area is sort of the sweet spot for billboards for us. But it's advertising. There's a lot to it. It seems like, well, we've been seeing advertisements all of our life. Should be the easiest thing. We should just assume we must know how to do this, but there's a lot to doing advertising successfully. And we're continuing to hone that skill. I think we still have a lot to learn, but we've been pleased by the results so far.
Well, it's definitely got some buzz on social media. That's been nice.
Yeah,
it gives us opportunities, the rest of us Intactivists opportunities to help educate people. That's great. But yeah, it's those billboards are costing anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000, something like that.
Yeah, in that range. Yeah. So we'd love to just blanket the country with billboards, but it's just not going to happen with our current budget.
Yeah, I mean, we would probably need $100,000 at least, right?
Yeah, we'd be burning through money like crazy.
Yeah.
Also, I think when you up the advertising, go up the scale on advertising, you need a coherent strategy of print, billboards, broadcast, and I don't think our level of professionalism or experience or expertise is there yet for
we haven't exactly hired a marketing specialist, have we?
Yeah, we're still learning, like I said.
Yeah.
And so, okay, we have small budgets and we're still learning. We don't want to, if we encountered a huge multi-million-dollar grant, it would be better for us to learn before that happens so that we can.
Well, I mean, if you got that kind of grant, then maybe we could afford to hire
right
a marketing specialist, right? I mean,
yeah.
We got.
But I mean, that's like dreamland. But so we're learning to crawl before we walk, before we run. So it is a learning curve. I'm happy with the results. I think, but it's hard to measure. I mean, the thing is, if you're advertising a product for sale, you immediately know the results because you can see the change in sales in your area.
Yeah.
But if you're advertising awareness of not doing surgery that's unnecessary, there's not a quick metric that you can point to and say, oh, this worked or this didn't work.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect of it that we're still, we have to contend with.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Not really important in this video, but have you guys considered putting up a little thing on the website that says, "Hey, how did you hear about us through the Facebook page or through a friend or the?"
That's a good. I don't think it's there, but that should be there. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Or an outdoor protest.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting to find out. But again, just getting it in front of people's eyes, I think, is great. And I wish that this kind of thing was going on back when before I was becoming a dad, because I was ready to get my own son. And the thought of that just makes me absolutely sick.
What changed your mind?
I think Mothering Magazine was one of the things we got here. It was Paul Fleiss.
Oh, right.
I mean, there wasn't a whole lot. That was over 16 years ago. A whole lot more has come out since then, and I mean, it's getting to the point where all you have to do is a lot of people look up circumcision benefits, which means that they're assuming that there's benefits at no cost, right? And that's what you'll get. I mean, this is like a lot of things on the internet. If you search for certain things, that's all that you'll get. You won't see the other side of the coin. So you have to look up circumcision harm. So it's, to me, I think it's getting harder for people to say, well, I didn't know. Right.
Right.
But I don't know. The thing is these books aren't flying off the shelves, in Barnes and Noble or on Amazon or anything like that. I've been involved with marketing and creating a second edition of one of those books and other things. And I know that they're just not flying off the shelves. I don't think they're getting stocked up in libraries either. I visited a few libraries, and I was pleasantly surprised to find the American Circumcision documentary DVD in the library. But
Oh, good.
finding a bunch of books
Excellent.
like this to talk about genital autonomy and stuff like that, and and when someone goes in the library and what they want to learn about circumcision, they're probably not looking up genital autonomy. They probably doesn't even cross their heads. They're probably looking for circumcision. So,
yeah, another, in addition to the American Circumcision documentary, there was the Sex and Circumcision: An American Love Story by Eric Klopper, which is on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that to me was excellent. I thought, he took it from a scientist's perspective and went through the data in a very compact and factual way, and explained all that, and then did his emotional response to being cut, which was the second half of it, which was also very moving.
Yep.
And I just thought he did an excellent job. I don't know what the numbers are in terms of how many people are seeing it, but it's free, so anybody can watch it. And I always try to get people to watch that if they're curious. Most people that I know casually or as friends or relatives or whatnot, they just don't want to even look at it. They don't want to consider it. It's not something they want to talk about. They want to watch a sci-fi movie or anything else. They don't want to deal with reality. I mean,
it's a harsh reality to see, to look at. It's one thing to watch old shows from the olden days where where people's heads would get chopped up in a guillotine and stuff like that, or old west shows where people shot each other, stuff like that, because it's not happening today. So you just look at that, it's like, I'm so happy we're past that, right? And feel good about it. But to look at something that's happening today, whether you're for or against, either way, honestly, I think it's hard to look at.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even intactivists have to take time off and say, this is, I can stare into the abyss only so long. I need some time away. It's such a dark reality, that confronting the mutilation of children and the way it's sold and the way it's people defend the mutilation of children. It can break your heart. So you have to take into account your own well-being and say, well, I need a break now. If you do,
Yeah, I'm kind of thankful that I live. Oh, you live close to the ocean too, right? So I can go to the beach and just stare off out in the into the earth, and just like, oh yeah, just tiny,
Time in nature is so healing. I mean, whether it's through walking through a forest or at the beach, or away from advertising and manipulation by other humans, and just into the natural world and just fresh air and peace. And the Japanese call it forest bathing, where you just go in and you just bathe in the forest energy. I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, I can only imagine living back in the days when a whole lot worse was going on. how to process that, and how to I guess those people in the Far East knew how to keep their sanity, right? Well, that was pretty much it. I just wanted to cover that and I guess do a little bit of promoting of Bloodstained Men. So hey, if there's anyone watching this as marketing specialist that wants to volunteer and help out, maybe make some suggestions on how to advertise better, please reach out to Bloodstained Men.
There's also a book that I recommend, which I want to reread. It's called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. And it's mostly from a business context, but it's written by, I think it's a professor of business, but I mean, he goes through various cases when the strategy was good and when the strategy was bad, and how do you take the facts before you and refine a new strategy and then act on it. And I've got to reread it. I was impressed by it when I read it the first time. And there's another book just called Strategy, which is the history of different theories of strategy, which is also excellent, but less focused on practical application than Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. One of the things that's struck me from Good Strategy, Bad Strategy is if you ask them what their strategy is and it boils down to working harder, you know they're going to fail.
Yeah.
It's working harder is not a strategy, just like hope is not a strategy. You've got to have a smarter plan if you're going to have a strategy. And it's hard intellectual work and something worth taking the time to think about and develop. And, for those listening who have this sort of curiosity about improving strategy, I would recommend those two sources, especially Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, as a starting point.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of again, there's lots of intactivist groups all across the globe. I even mapped them out on the Genital Autonomy Society /map website, and we all have gotten together in various ways and communicated about the strategies that we're doing, the tactics that we're taking, and shared lessons learned and all that. And I think that that's valuable because then we learn from each other, not to go repeat the same mistakes or whatever, right? So,
right. The other thing that I came up that I wanted to mention was that the Me Too movement was suddenly successful over. I mean, women had been complaining about the abuse that they suffered in business environments and by powerful professionals and their bosses and things, and for forever. But until the Me Too movement came along, they really got no traction. So things can change suddenly, and just the Me Too hashtag did wonders for changing people's perception of what's acceptable in the workplace and whether, and shaming people out who should have been shamed out of their what they were doing. And so even if you don't have immediate success, it took a long time for something like the Me Too movement to come in and really change the dynamics of the problem of sexual abuse in the workplace.
Same thing with Pride, right? It took a while, and they organized a little better, and
so these things don't happen overnight. So you never, don't be discouraged. That's like, it's just, and it can just suddenly take traction, and it's a matter. And I think again, we just want to keep bringing in, building new intactivists, bringing new people on, getting them to feel comfortable raising their voice, and making them feel safe and appreciated. I mean,
it's clear that we're growing. I mean, according to Intact America, 1 out of 5 in the U.S. now supports the message. So
that's So it is working. It is working. It's just the long slog of getting the word out, and it's something that Republican strategists apparently are very good at. That they get a very key message, a simple message, and they all get on board and they say it over and over and over and over again until they make their progress. And in contrast, Democrats generally don't have that same focus and aren't as effective at messaging. So I think just learning, well, okay, these guys know what they're doing. Let's imitate them. They get people on board, a simple message, focus it, make sure it works, and then just repeat, and get as many people as you can repeating it, so that you just drive it home. It's the fun part is the creative part, but the essential part is the repetitive part of just doing it again and again and again and again, and saying it over and over and over again until it hits home.
And from what I understand, Bloodstained Men are doing 4 tours this next year.
Yes, we've got we're back in business. We're going to do a Southwest tour coming up, I think in March.
Starting in Vegas.
And so it'll start in Las Vegas and end in Las Vegas, and go all the way to Texas and back.
Yeah.
And it should be, I'm not going to be able to go on that one, but it should be a lot, really another epic tour. I mean, one of the great things about those tours is you get to be with activists that are, I don't know, like being with you, being with anyone who understands it. It just feels like, I feel so enriched by the presence of other intactivists that it's like, every time I meet another intactivist, I feel like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
there's people like me in the world. I love it. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a great feeling. So
Yeah.
it's that is the big uptick for the participants, is that you get to be with people that you really enjoy, you're really going to enjoy their company.
Mhm.
And they're just, good-hearted people who are willing to do hard work for a just cause. And,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you want to be with people like that? That's like, it's way better than people just talking about the latest pop song or something like that. That's too
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah. A little more deep.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, Harry. Well, thanks again for doing this interview with me.
Okay, John, it was a real pleasure.
All right. Have a good day.